So let's get started. This is iPhone personal safety features. My name is Wade, and I'll be your guide for the class today. Objectives for this class are to know how to complete and access your medical ID, how to send emergency SOS messages, and how to share your location with other people. So medical emergency is sort of the main topic we're going to be talking about. And in a medical emergency situations, accurate, complete, and timely medical information is critical. It can potentially save your life by ensuring that first responders have access to medical details and also have a way to quickly contact family members or other emergency contacts that you might have. So let's grab my phone here. Oops. And so we're going to be using the Health app, and it looks like this. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the Health app. And you may be using this app already to track your steps. I do use it for that as well. But there's a medical ID that is a little bit hidden. You don't see it on the main screen here. What you have to do is touch your number up at the top here. Let me go. So touch your picture. And this will bring up another screen with more health information. But the second option here is medical ID, and that's what we're trying to get to for today. If I touch that again, it shows me the information that currently is in my medical ID. But if you haven't filled it out yet, this is going to be pretty much empty. To fill it out or to update something or add information, you have to touch the edit up in the upper right. That then switches it over to edit mode, where you can enter your information. And I'll briefly touch on the information here. If you're in the Zoom session and have questions or comments, feel free to unmute yourself and ask away or drop them in the chat. Date of birth is important. Sometimes it is important for them to know the age of the person they're working on. And again, the scenario here, let's say, is that you're walking down the street, you trip, you fall, you're unconscious, you're bleeding. So they need to take care of you. You're unconscious. You can't tell them anything about yourself. All they have to go on is what you put in your medical ID. So they want to know what your age is, any medical conditions that you have. Now, one consideration here is how comprehensive do you make this? And you can put every single thing you have in here. If for whatever reason you don't want to make it comprehensive, think about the scenario I just put in place. So make sure they know things about you that might impact how they're not going to take care of you since you're unconscious and can't tell them about it. But this could be things like congestive heart failure, you got a pacemaker, those sorts of things. The next section here is just a medical notes section. You can put anything you want to in here. One thing I recommend, what I have here, is put the name and phone number of your primary care physician. That's somebody they may want to get in touch with quickly if they have questions, so that makes it easy for them. Other information you think they need to know about that's not in one of the fields we'll talk about, you can put it under the medical notes. Allergies and reactions are extremely important, and it's good to put both what you're allergic to and what reactions you have to it, because that will make a difference. Because I'm allergic to penicillin, but I break out in hives, but I don't go into anaphylactic shock. So that's important for them to know what it is, but what type of reactions you've had in the past you've been exposed to that allergen. Medications. And again, you can be comprehensive and list everything that you take. But again, make sure you list anything, including supplements that might be important. I take turmeric every day, and turmeric is a blood thinner. And if I've had an accident and I'm bleeding, they may need to know that I'm taking turmeric. It could potentially interact with something they're going to give me. Your blood type, obviously, they need to know that. If you're an organ donor, height and weight, important for certain medications they're prescribing, so they need to know that information. They can look at you and guess, but it's better to give them the exact information. Okay. And if I keep scrolling down, the next section is emergency contacts. These are the people that you want to be notified if something happens to you. And you can add multiple. I've got 2 here. I think you can go up to 5, but you can have several. And you can actually even tell them what the relationship is. This is my wife. This is my brother. And we'll talk about ways for this to be automatically done. They can be automatically contacted, but if the first responder is just looking at the screen, they'll see who these people are. Okay. And there's 2 other fact fields here. Show when locked. This means that someone can access this information even if your phone is locked. I have it turned on. I would suggest that you have that turned on because if you do have a medical emergency, you may not be on your phone, so it may be locked. And if you want them to get to this information to take care of you, make sure it's green. I think this is turned on by default. And have good lunch, bye. And share during emergency call. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. This is emergency SOS feature, where you can have this information from your medical ID automatically sent to the 911 operator when you place it when you have an emergency. So this is the information. When you've got what you want in there, you can just hit done, and it will save and update the information here. One thing I'll show you that if someone does have my phone because I'm unconscious and they are just using this to look at my information from my phone, they can dial direct to these contacts. So that's one way they make it easy for them to get in touch with somebody and say, Wade has had an accident, he's unconscious, we're going to be taking him to this hospital. Whatever information they need to communicate with your emergency contacts. All right, so if there's no questions, we're going to keep moving. So we're going to talk about emergency SOS next. We're going to close out of this. While I'm in here, though, I'm going to click back into here. Now, there is a lot of other information in here as well. Health records you can add. You can set up, if you're not an organ donor, you can go here and register to be an organ donor. So other information here that doesn't necessarily have to do with emergency situations, but a good way to have your medical information with you and organized in a lot of different areas. So there's a feature on your iPhone called Emergency SOS, which allows you to quickly and easily call emergency services, call 911, and alert your emergency contacts about your situation and your location. So you activate emergency SOS slightly different depending on your phone. This is true with lots of features of your iPhone. Unfortunately, if you have an iPhone 8 or newer, you press and hold the volume button and the side buttons at the same time until this screen pops up. It's the same thing you do if you want to turn off your phone. So this is how you can get to slide to power off if you want to recycle your phone. I do that at least once a month just to clean everything out. But you can see it also has medical ID here. And this is where how a emergency responder would be able to get to your medical ID information we just looked at and talked about. They know this trick. They know how to hold the buttons on your phone to come to this page. They would then touch medical ID, and it would bring up that medical ID so they can see all that information, and they can call your contacts if they need to from there. You can also do an emergency SOS call. Now, there's a couple of different scenarios here. One, you may want to do this if there's an emergency. So instead of getting your phone and dialing 911 and calling 911 manually, you may want to do this. You can also, if you know about this and you were see someone have an accident and they're unconscious and you take their phone out, you can call emergency SOS on behalf of that person just by coming to this screen and sliding that over. So several different scenarios here as to what you would do with this screen. Now, if you just press and hold until the screen pops up, you can do what I was talking about. There is another scenario. If you continue to hold those buttons, it's going to automatically start a countdown, and you would see it on the screen. I think it starts at 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then it places the emergency SOS call automatically. So, that's if there's scenarios, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in a few minutes, where you can't or don't want to make a phone call. You can just continue to hold those buttons. Now, on the iPhone 7 and older, you have to press the side button 5 times. That's the button on the right-hand side as you're looking at your phone. It'll bring up this same screen or very similar screen. So you should get there a little differently. Okay, so let's keep going. So how does emergency SOS work? We've talked a little bit about it. If you activate emergency SOS using any of those techniques I just explained, your phone's going to automatically call the local emergency number and send your information and your medical ID, assuming your medical ID has been enabled. After the emergency call ends, your iPhone sends a text message with your current location and to your emergency contacts. So it's going to automatically go to your contacts. Nobody has to do anything if you've done the emergency SOS. And this is a nice feature. Afterwards, your emergency contacts receive updates if your location changes. So the EMS squad gets there, they put you in the ambulance, they take you to a hospital. Your contacts are going to know that you've moved initially, and they're going to find out what hospital you're in because it's going to update your location I think it's every 10 minutes or so. So that way they'll know where you are, even if nobody has called them to say that you're in the hospital. Great feature. One thing I do want to mention, especially if you happen to be playing with this after class and you accidentally place a call to emergency SOS, don't just hang up. That could suggest to them that there is an emergency and they may dispatch EMS to your site. Wait for someone to answer the phone and say, "Oops, I'm so sorry. I was working on my phone and I accidentally called you. There's no emergency." So don't just hang up. All right, so we're going to keep going. So there are some settings. We talked about a lot of these features, but as always, there's some of these you can turn on and off in settings. So I'm going to go to the settings here and go down to emergency SOS. And here it is, and it's got the little red SOS beside it. Now, one thing is nice about this is it tells you for your phone how you can activate emergency SOS. So with mine, since mine is a 12, I would push the buttons on each side. So it's showing me here what I need to do. Now, I mentioned the fact that you could, an option is to just keep holding the buttons even after that screen pops up, and it'll automatically call emergency services. One scenario may be in that case if you're in a place where you think there's someone in your house or you're in danger for some reason and you want to quietly contact without making any noise. That's one way to do it. If for whatever reason you're having some other problems, that's why you would use this hold. So you can turn that on and off. Now, if you want to also have the 5-button press like the iPhone 7 and older, you can turn that on. There's a little slide button here. It's probably hard to see. I've got that turned off, but I can turn it on. I'm going to turn that back off. And then call quietly. Now, one thing I didn't talk about is if you do emergency SOS, when you activate it, it's going to make a loud siren sound. Now, in some scenarios, that's helpful because that's letting people around you know that you need help. So that's, and that is the default, or that's what this setting is. But there may be other scenarios where that's not a good thing. So again, if it's domestic violence or a home invasion, a hostage situation, you don't want someone in your house to know that you've called emergency SOS. There's an option to switch that alarm off. So you can slide this over. And so now it would call, but it's not going to sound that alarm. So of course, unfortunately, you can't change this on a instant basis. You can't change it one way, depending on what the emergency situation is. You've got to set the how it works. But if you think you would, in most cases, want to have it quiet, you can turn that on. If you want the siren, you can turn it off. And I think it is off by default. So that's something you would need to turn on. Okay, I'm going to pause a second for questions. There's no questions so far. We're going to move on to the next related topic. Accessing that medical ID from a locked phone. So scenario here is that the EMS squad shows up and need to get to that medical information. So in this case, no one did emergency SOS, so they're not going to have that information from the 911 operator. If you did emergency SOS, when you call 911, they're going to tell the emergency responders all this information ahead of time. But if not, they just come there, they find you unconscious on the street, they're going to get your phone and get to that medical ID. Yeah, Helen, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Good morning. Back on the emergency SOS screen at the bottom, there's emergency SOS via satellite. What is that?
Yes. Let me go back there. Now, mine doesn't have that
Oh,
because
okay.
because that is only available with certain phones. I think
Okay.
you have to have maybe it's a 14 or 15. I know it has it. So yeah, but thanks for bringing that up. I don't have that, but I have read about that. So if the emergency is in a situation where you don't have cell coverage, like you're out hiking in the woods somewhere and there's no cell coverage, there's no Wi-Fi coverage, you can make a satellite call by using that option. But you have to have one of the newer phones to see that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's what that is. So you wouldn't use that unless there's no other way to call. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up, Ellen. Okay, so again, we're in the scenario now where I'm unconscious on the street. I've hit my head. I'm bleeding. I need help. Either a first responder comes up, maybe a nurse walks by, or somebody else is trying to help me that is qualified, and they want to get my information. So if they know the trick, which first responders would, to touch the side key, and the volume button at the same time, uh, it'll pop up this screen. And this is where you would normally enter your passcode or use your Face ID to unlock your phone. But they don't have your Face ID or your passcode. But what they can do is touch this emergency down in the bottom left. You've probably seen this screen 100 times. You may have ever noticed that emergency down at the bottom. But if you touch that emergency down at the bottom, it will bring up this screen, which they can use to actually call 911. So this is another trick to know yourself. So if you're the Good Samaritan that finds somebody and you're trying to get them help, uh, you can get to this screen, you can touch emergency, and then you can call 911 from their phone. If they happen to have medical ID, it would send that information by calling it on their phone instead of using your phone. You could call 911 from your phone, but you're not going to, it's not going to pass all that information. But if they touch medical ID here, then it'll open to that. It'll open the screen, that medical ID information. So that's how someone can get to that information using your phone. And again, if you're, especially if you're qualified and you find someone that's in trouble, and you can grab their phone and do this for them and call 911, or even have this information available. But if you're, of course, if you're a trained nurse or physician or first responder, you can get that information to help you try to stabilize them until an ambulance can get there. Okay. Right. Any other questions? Okay. All right, so let's keep going. Okay, so that's everything we're gonna do with the medical ID and the health app. But there's a couple other ways where your phone can help you in an emergency situation, or to avoid emergency situation in some cases. And that is, one of them is to share your location. So this is in the Find My app. Looks like this. And of course, with all of these, you can, if you can't find the health app or you can't find the Find My app, all you have to do is put your finger on the screen and pull down to get to the search and type in FI for Find My, and there it is. Or you can type HE for Health and get to that one. So nice trick to find any app on your phone. Of course, you can also have Siri find it for you as well. So I'm going to go into the Find My app. That's the right one. And you have to go to the people down here in the bottom left. And these are people that you're sharing your location with already. So let's talk about some scenarios again where you might want to share your location. Maybe the weather is bad and you're going to be traveling to a friend's house, but you want them to know that you've left and that you're on the way, so that if you don't show up, they'll know something's going on. So you could share your location with that person. Maybe you're out hiking alone and you want some people to know what you're doing, or maybe you're hiking with several people, and in case somebody gets lost, falls down, rolls off the trail, so that other people can find you. If you happen to have an accident while you're out hiking with some other people, lots of different scenarios where it's good to have other people be able to track you. My wife and I both use this all the time. So if my wife says she's going to the store, she'll be back in 15 minutes, and it's 20 minutes and she's not back, first thing I do is come here and check to see where she is, if she's okay. So I think it's a great feature just for normal peace of mind. But if something had happened, I go to Find My, and she's sitting someplace along the route to where she was going, but the car's not moving and there's nothing, no stores around there. She may have run off the road. She may have had car trouble, and maybe for whatever reason, her phone's not even working. But again, I can find her with this Find My app, and all I have to do is I'll touch here, and if it's that scenario where she shared her location with me, I can hit directions and get directions right to where she is very quickly. Of course, I'd probably try to call her first, but if I call and she doesn't answer because maybe she's run off the road, off the road, hit her head and she's unconscious, I can still see where she is and get to her. So a nice feature to use. So if you already have someone that you're sharing your location with and you want to let them know that you're going to be going somewhere, and then to monitor your progress. If the person you want to share with is not in your list, maybe it's somebody you're going hiking with and you haven't put them on your list before, you can hit the plus here and click Share My Location. And it brings up your contacts. And let's say I'm going with Nancy Yarbrough. Now, if you don't know the trick, blue contacts have an iPhone. gray contacts do not. And so you have to pick someone with a gray. So you can't share your location with someone that has an Android. They have to have an iPhone. But her mobile phone is an iPhone, so I can touch here. And it adds her. Now, if maybe there's 3 of us that are going hiking together, so I could pick additional people. You can pick as many people as you want. And once you've got the list that you want to share with, you can hit send. I'm going to go ahead and hit send up there in the upper right, because there's one more step. How long do you want to share? Now, if we're going out hiking for an hour, I may want to just share for 1 hour. I don't want that person to always be able to know where I am, but I do for the next hour. You can share until the end of the day. That one's probably safer because you may not know how long it's going to take for the hike or how long it's going to take you to get to that person's house that you're traveling to. So you can share it till the end of the day. And I think that's at midnight, but what it means by end of the day, it'll stop sharing automatically. Or you can set up sharing indefinitely. That's what my wife and I have done with each other. We're sharing indefinitely. So it's shared until you cancel it. So I would pick one of these, and then that would send a message to that person saying that Wade has shared his location with you. That person can accept it, or that person can reject it and say, I don't want to know where Wade is. So again, you control your phone. People can't put things on your phone automatically. You'll have to reply to that request. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of this, since I don't want to send that. Now, I'm going to touch here and scroll down to the bottom, and here's where I can stop sharing. So if I set it up for indefinitely, because maybe we were going to be doing something for the weekend and I wanted to share for the weekend, but when the weekend's over, I want to stop sharing my location with that person, you can set it indefinitely and then click here to stop sharing. So it doesn't mean you're stuck forever sharing. You can always change your mind. Now, if you just stop sharing your location, it's going to leave that person in your list. If you want to remove them, you can remove them. And that way you won't see their location either. Questions so far?
I have one, Wade.
Yeah, go ahead.
On this sharing, is it like mutually exclusive? Like if you share it with Michelle, Michelle automatically shares with you. It's a two-way thing, or is it?
It's a one-way thing. So
It's a
yeah, I
one-way
can
thing.
share mine with her without her sharing hers with me. Or she could turn around and I think when she gets the request, it will say, do you want to share your location with Wade? And she can say yes, and then I'll get a request. Or she would, if she doesn't do that, then she'd have to do the same thing on her side. She would have to share location. So it is a one-way. So each person would have to set it up to have that mutual sharing.
Okay, thank you.
Good clarification. Yeah. And again, this is why there's 2 here. So if I don't want to share my location with Michelle any longer, but I want to see Michelle's location, I can stop sharing my location and still see hers. Or I can take this off and say, I don't want to see her anymore. But I want to keep sharing mine. And of course, she could drop me as well. So there's several ways that this sharing relationship can be dropped.
Seems like one way is kind of stalking.
Well, that's why, well, of course, you can't, one way, I can't request to her location. She's got to share with me. So you can't really stalk. You've got to give the other person your location. So that's how the one-way sharing works. I can share my location with Michelle. If she wants to know where I am, she'd have to either request my location and have her send me, she'd have to share hers with me going through this same process, I guess I'm trying to say. All right, so there's one other thing here that I wanted to talk about as well, and this is fairly new, and it's called notifications. And I hadn't really looked at this before. If I was getting ready for class, I took a look at this, and this is a nice new addition that they put on here. So I touch the add right below notifications, and that kind of springs off into two options: notify me or notify Michelle. So I'm going to start with notify Michelle because the theme of this class is really where you're trying to protect yourself. So this is where I want Michelle to be notified based on some circumstances here. So when I leave home or when I leave a certain location, so maybe when I leave, I'm at the store and I'm coming home, or I'm at a hotel 150 miles away. But you can say when I leave, and you can pick one of the locations here. You can add a new location. It's going to notify her that you've left that location. Or you can change it to be the other way around. Maybe I've left and I want her to be notified when I arrive at home. So I could say, notify Michelle when I arrive at uh, my current location, which is my home, and only do that once, or you can do it every time I go to that location. But again, this is kind of, you got to think about that two-way sharing. So this is, I'm sharing my location, my movement with her, and it's going to automatically notify when one of these things happens. It's a little confusing. Does that make sense? I'm going to cancel and go back to the other one. Now you could flip this around and to notify me. So I could set this up myself if Michelle's leaving and I want to make sure she gets to a certain location. I could say when Michelle arrives, pick the location down here. Maybe she's going to the airport. So I would put IOM. Okay. Okay, and done. So you put a location in there like that. So now when she arrives at the location, notify me once. Can't really think of off the top of my head a every time scenario, but it may be you want to know every time somebody goes to a certain place, that's what that's for. I think probably only once is going to be what you would use more often than not. So that's the flip side. The nice new feature. I'm not sure when that was released, but it can be very handy. Thinking about emergency situations where maybe we're both evacuating because of a hurricane. It's hurricane season. We live at the coast, and I want to notify my brother who lives in Georgia that we're leaving, and notify him when we arrive at the destination we picked, that we're going to a hotel somewhere further inland. That may be a scenario, so that way he doesn't have to wait for me to call him, and I don't have to remember to call him. When I get to that location, it's going to automatically notify him. Questions about that one? Right. And that, I think, was everything I was going to share with you today. Yeah, so I'll pause one more time if there's any questions before we wrap up. Okay, so if there aren't, let's go ahead and wrap up. So in summary, we covered a number of things today. We talked about how to fill out your medical ID and update it if you need to update it, and then multiple ways that someone can access that medical ID. We talked about how to send the emergency SOS message, which sends that medical ID information to the 911 operator so that they have all that information, and also contact your emergency contacts. And we talked about how to share location with other people as another way to make sure that someone knows if you're in a potentially dangerous situation and can track your location. So let's get started. This is iPhone personal safety features. My name is Wade, and I'll be your guide for the class today.